Frost. Hello everybody on Facebook and YouTube. How are you today? I was just saying to our friends here on Instagram, we made it! Friday, yes! And I hope everybody is well and healthy and happy. Now, just a quick apologies on Facebook and YouTube. You'll see that in the screen it's actually showing a little bit of my phone. That's because I've got my two phones here live. You know, I'm live on Instagram and also live on Facebook, and then later uploaded onto YouTube. And I was having a bit of a technical drama this morning because the little gadget that holds my phone onto my stand broke. So I had a bit of a moment. So anyway, I found some gaffer tape and I have strapped it together. Honestly, I'm just using all sorts of bits of low-tech sellotape and string basically to kind of hold it all together. And the only way I could do that is by adjusting the angle slightly. So apologies, you're actually seeing a little bit of the screen there from Instagram. But today I'm going to be joined on Instagram Live by an amazing expert who's going to talk us all through the differences between prebiotics, probiotics, even maybe postbiotics. And this is relating to a post that I did on Instagram yesterday all about that. So if you want to know a little bit more, if you're watching me on Facebook, do check that out on Earle Wellbeing, which is of course my Instagram. But I'm going to be talking to the guys at Bimuno, who, as you may know, we've worked with at Earle Wellbeing for quite a while now, because they are just so expert, particularly in looking at the world of prebiotics. And prebiotics are the foods that feed our good gut bacteria. So it's a bit like, if you use a kind of gardening analogy, it's a bit like putting fertilizer on the garden to help everything grow. What prebiotics do is they feed the good gut bugs. So they're really, really important to eat our probiotics or to have probiotic supplements, whatever you choose. But really important, once you've got your good colony of good gut bugs going on in your microbiome, that you actually keep it flourishing and healthy, because these are things that need kind of daily care. It's not something that we can kind of do once and then just, you know, forget about it. Unfortunately, it is something that we do need to be aware of all the time. So the good news is that they are so protective and they're so important for so many things, from mental health to helps with sleep to weight loss to our immune system support, all of that. So that's what I'm going to be talking about as the kind of main focus. Couple of other notices. I will get through as many comments and questions as well as I can. I've got my iPad here, which is connected to some of the questions and comments that are coming in. I think it's Amy today on Facebook, is it? Hi there, thank you very much for manning it. For all those who are watching me who are new, perhaps for the first time, I know there are new people tuning in. The way it works is that I have two phones here, so I can broadcast on both platforms at the same time. Instagram is where I can do my split screen, where I'm going to be doing my live. But of course on Facebook I can't do the split screen, so you won't see the person I'm talking to, but you will hear, and that's the most important thing, isn't it? Because it's all about content and information. It's not really what we look like, although it's nice to see people too, obviously. So that's the way it works. And if you have any comments, you know, please do make them. I don't do direct message on Instagram, just throwing that out there, because I know lots of you have been direct messaging me and I just can't cope with it. But I do try and pick up as many comments as I can. And I know, incidentally, that there were lots of comments this morning because I posted a new reel. Getting the hang of these reels, they're quite fun because they're just these little short snippets, quite snappy, and there's a bit of music. I chose a bit of Harry Styles this morning, Golden, which I quite like, so I hope you enjoy that. And I was talking about foods that are particularly good for bone building, so really important for midlife women. We know that we lose bone density and muscle mass and all of that, so looking at things like vitamin D and calcium, and really good sources of that. And there was quite a lively debate going on, which is always good. Very happy to have a debate. Not so happy when it starts to get a bit rude and a bit unpleasant. So just, you know, really happy to chat, but let's just always be polite and kind and positive and listen to what people have to say rather than just kind of throwing bricks around. Anyway, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And also, just to say, for those of you, there's been lots of chit-chat going on about the cell return mask, these amazing masks that Lily is bringing in from South Korea, NASA technology. I've actually got mine here. This is how it comes in a little travel bag with its rechargeable case. We did manage to get her to extend the discount code for Liz Loves. So it's extended. I think it runs out on Monday. So if you want to take a look, Cell Return UK is her website address, and she's on Instagram as well. This is just the cover of it. And there was a really great pic actually on Instagram. There's a top cricketer and his wife had bought one of these. Oh my goodness, I pressed it. It's starting up. So, whoops, stop it. Anyway, so that she posted a picture, or I think he posted a picture actually on his Instagram of him wearing it. So, you know, saying that they really liked it and all the members of the family were now borrowing it. So you can see has over 1,000 really high-powered LED lights and also near infrared, which we talk about actually in the current issue of Earle Wellbeing magazine. So if you've got that magazine to hand, do check it out and have a read through. It's fascinating stuff. This is the one that I use, the red mode, and it doesn't flicker in real life. I think, Alison, you asked a question on Instagram about this, about whether it was any good for migraine or people who are sort of light sensitive. Well, Lily, as you know, it has chronic migraine, and she finds this really helpful. So hopefully that gives you a bit of assurance on that. But obviously do maybe message her directly. They're very good. Cell Return UK, really good at contacting people and getting back and explaining more about it. But I have inadvertently switched mine on. So that's the red mode that I use. And then blue mode. So blue light is very good for acne and for clearing the skin. So if you've got breakouts, for example, it's really good. So I've got younger members of my family who use it on blue mode. And it's great because you then don't need to use, you know, topical treatments or whatever. It is unbelievably effective. And then the pink mode, if I switch it on to pink, is the one that's very good for inflammation. So that's very good for scarring. So for example, I had a friend use it for quite bad acne, and once her acne had cleared, she's now using it on the pink mode to help with the scarring. And it's also very good for rosacea, psoriasis, eczema, all those kind of inflammatory skin conditions. And then the last one, where it kind of cycles through the three of them, just for 9 minutes. So anyway, just to say that if you're interested, it is an expensive bit of kit. She has got it, I think, on a discount at the moment, and our discount does apply 10% with Liz Love, so it's probably going to be the cheapest time to get it if you want it. But I just thought I'd throw it out there because that does run out on Monday. Now then, let's get into the main event. I'm very excited. Lucian Harthorn is going to be joining me from Bimuno. So, spider veins, I think you probably use a mixture of the red and the pink, but best to ask Lily about that. Let me just see if Lucian is here. Got lots of people asking to join me, but actually it's Lucian who I need. So I'm going to have to scroll through and find... Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? No, lots and lots and lots of other people. Can't find you, Lucy. Oh, here we go. I think, are you on Bimuno, hopefully? Is that you? Let me see. Waiting for Bimuno, so maybe connecting. Hey!
Hello, Liz. Hello.
Hi! Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
I can. Where are you speaking to us from?
From the Netherlands, so it's a really nice and cozy winter here.
Fantastic! I don't think we've ever done an international live, so congratulations, you're the first.
Thank you, thank you. How are you doing?
How is it over there? Is it really cold? Is it bitter?
It is below zero, so I have seen people already on the skates, on the ice skates,
Wow.
yesterday. My wife and I have 2 boys, so they are also into skating now. So it's lovely. I mean, you know, I like winter in that way.
Yeah.
Having a bit of a white blanket on the landscape.
Yeah, very nice. And for those of you who can't see, Lucian, you've got, it looks like a big kind of snowball lampshade behind you. It's very beautiful. I can just see it over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Very.
I can give the address of the shop, no problem.
Can you? Excellent. I feel slightly underdressed, I have to say, for a guest. I was actually out for a run earlier. I've got so many layers on. I've done that thing of lots and lots of thin layers. So it's kind of dress down Friday here, so excuse me. Now, I am really interested to talk to you. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you specialise in.
Yeah, I'm trained in biomedical sciences, so to be honest, that's already from quite some years ago, from the Free University in Amsterdam, so I'm Dutch, as you may hear. And I did a PhD in metabolism and endocrinology. So endocrinology is basically the hormones and whatever regulates our metabolism, our stress response, etc. So I finished my PhD in 2002. Then I had some academic positions, postdoc researcher and a researcher, and I slightly moved into bigger companies and international organizations. So today I'm working as an R&D director at Plasado Biosciences.
Interesting. And so much going on, the whole world of bioscience, metabolism, hormone health. I mean, this is really where it's at, isn't it, in terms of keeping us well for longer?
Absolutely. No, there is a lot of exciting science going on, and and that's what I like. I mean, it never stops. And once you have answered one research question, there will be two or three, or maybe even 10 new research questions.
Yeah, new ones. Absolutely. And what's been your interest in the microbiome and gut health particularly?
Well, that's interesting because, as I said, I'm trained in biomedical sciences, so a little bit of both of, the biology, the mechanisms of actions, understanding diseases, doing lab work, but also the medical sciences and how that translates into, the clinical practice. And then with my PhD in metabolism and endocrinology. So it's, I think, only 10 or 15 years ago that I came across bigger research in nutrition. So nutrition kind of captivated me at that time.
Yeah.
And I started working in a bigger European project around obesity, healthy weight management society at that time.
Yeah.
And it was also the time when the first bigger publications in research came out, showing these associations between the gut microbiome or the gut microbiome and health and disease. And I think that was quite fascinating to see that the microbiome, we think it's such an established system, and basically it is, but it's still also vulnerable. And these studies show the associations between a kind of disturbed or a disbalanced microbiome,
yes.
and diseases like obesity or allergy or kind of things.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? All those things that are kind of front of mind at the moment. You talk about obesity, allergies. So many people, I think in the past have just thought, well, if I'm looking at gut health, I'm just really looking at things like bloating and IBS and IBD. But actually, everything links, doesn't it? And I think one of the things that I was just really so amazed by is when you look at the lining of the gut, it's the epithelial layer, if I'm right, is just one cell thick. So it's it's so vulnerable, and we need to be able to protect that in the best possible way, because once we start to get pathogens or the bad bugs that pass through that, we are exposed to all kinds of health disorders that we can actually fix by making our microbiome better and stronger. Is that right?
No, true, and I think there is even one more element, because you are perfectly right that it's basically that one cell layer thick lining that there is, and of course there is, there are a lot of other factors and elements surrounding that, but I think also realizing the whole surface of the gut lumen, and I think that's really a big area where we can influence health and disease in a way. And what also fascinates me at this moment is seeing all these connections between gut health and the gut microbiome, and that linked to the immune system or linked to the brain. So there's the so-called gut-brain axis, which is a vice versa way of communication. So even the gut and the microbiome that can produce a lot of metabolites and good stuff, of course, those components can be signaling molecules that influence also our brain, our mental health, our stress response, but also vice versa, because we all remember that when you are in a stressful situation, it immediately affects your gut, your feeling,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I used to get terrible, stomach cramps with anxiety. And I guess that's my brain signaling. They talk about this gut-brain axis, the vagus nerve, and the little microbes communicating, isn't it, between the gut and the brain?
Exactly, and that communication is vice versa, so that's a two-way communication. There is more research and new papers about the link between the gut and the liver, the gut and the skin. I think you mentioning just about allergy. What I have been doing over quite some years is also being involved in clinical studies in pediatric research. I think you point, Liz, to how solid or how vulnerable the system in the gut is, and the gut barrier is a very relevant point. In very early life, so talking about infants, that gut barrier, but also the gut microbiome, and also knowing that the immune system is still in a developing phase.
Right.
So the gut microbiome, in a sense, is still a developing system the first years of life, and it becomes established around when we are 3-4 years of age. But then together with the developing gut microbiome and the gut lining, it's also this developing immune system. So there is, it's now clear that there is such a strong interaction and crosstalk between the immune system and gut. And basically, we know that around 70%, maybe even a bit more, of the immune cells reside in and around the gut. So only that phenomenon is, I think, very exciting. And well, if we talk about gut health and gut microbiome, we are basically talking about immune health as well.
So really, thinking about it, gosh, 70% of our immune cells or immune sort of signals happening in the gut, that is making it really, it should be our number one priority. Really, we really should be thinking. Obviously, we've got to be thinking about sleep and exercise and, drinking lots of water and all of that. But, really thinking about what's going on in the gut and how we can influence it through what we eat and how we behave. And we can come on to talk about some of those things in a moment. Is, we should be pushing this really up our personal health agenda, don't you think?
Absolutely, and I think nowadays that, with the whole pandemic worldwide, I mean, everything, and I'm also glad to see that, the importance of nutrition is put back into the spotlight because of the immune system. So I think also more biologically, there is a good reason, of course, to have that high percentage of immune cells in and around the gut, because, it's basically, I think, Hippocrates said already, all disease begins in the gut.
Hippocrates said that, and he was, what a dude. I mean, he was ahead of his time. Thousands of years ago, wasn't he? Or hundreds of years. I mean, when was Hippocrates? I'm terrible on my maths.
Before Christ.
So thousands. Yeah, I'm right then. Thousands of years ago. That's a staggering thing. He knew about the microbiome.
No, and it's still true. I mean, we are what we eat. So, but having said that, I mean, the gut is still such an important, let's say, channel. So everything that comes through, and of course we have some barriers like the gastric acid, but that needs a kind of continuous monitoring by the immune system. What's in there? Is there something harmful? We have to attack.
Yeah.
If it's all good, I mean, it's still that immune system that is surveying and looking around. So that's also one of the reasons why that high percentage of immune cells is in and around the gut. Right.
That was one of the things that struck me, actually, when looking at probiotics, is I kind of had thought that if we're having probiotics, if we're having a probiotic supplement or we're having lots of fermented foods or whatever, that we were putting them into our gut and they stay there. But they don't stay there, do they? They pass through.
They pass through. So one thing with probiotics in particular is always you need a high amount of probiotic bacteria, because not every bacterium will survive, especially, as I mentioned, the gastric acid passage. But of course, there are good studies also showing that probiotics give that advantage. They can stay there, but for a certain time, and they can have a direct influence.
Yes.
But you need to feed that.
You need to feed it. Yeah.
If we go back to our established system of gut microbiome, it's an established system. On the other hand, it's still a vulnerable system. We can have circumstances or, factors in life like, well, we know already that diet influences also your microbiome composition, but it can be also diseases. It can be, an infection, a gastroenteritis can heavily influence your microbiome. But then also talking about medication or antibiotics, or I believe also nowadays in these proton pump inhibitors, which is a gastric acid suppression, that is even influencing your microbiome composition. So the point is that it seems a very well established system. We also know that there is a huge variation between individuals. So one person living in Japan can have a totally different microbiome composition than someone lives in the UK or in the Netherlands or in the US. Yeah. So on the one hand, it's established. On the other hand, it's not a fixed fingerprint. So it's still a vulnerable system. And that's, I think, where pre- and probiotics, and maybe also the symbiotics and the postbiotics, so some new areas that are developing now.
Yeah.
That we can apply these ingredients, foods, to keep a healthy microbiome, whatever a healthy microbiome is, of course. But to keep these beneficial bacteria at a good level. So feeding your gastrointestinal soil.
Yes. I mean, I've been giving probiotics to my kids now for many years, and I have a different array of them. So we kind of chop and change, and I get them to drink kefir and all those things. Do you have kefir in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Are you a kefir fan?
Yeah. In the supermarkets, there are different brands now. Yeah,
good. So we're kind of used to that, and I refer to them in our family as your friends, because when they were little, they were talking about gut microbes. It was like, oh, I'm not sure, microbes. And I say, no, they're good bugs. They're good. They're like your friends. They're your friends that live inside your microbiome. And now, I get them to think about what they're eating to feed their friends. It's like, it's all very well inviting your friends in, hopefully we'll all be able to do that soon, come in, but then you're going to say, come and have a drink and have something to eat. And it's kind of, you want your friends to flourish, don't you? You want to, having got your lovely good gut bugs by, making your yogurt or whatever you're doing, or eating a bit more green leafy veg or all of those good things, you've then got to look after them, haven't you, to make sure that they then look after you.
Absolutely. In that way, it's two ways. No, it's completely right that, and I think back to the point of probiotics. I mean, if we have, let's say, a healthy established microbiome system in our guts, probiotics may live there for a certain time. But of course, they need to kind of settle in. There is also a strong competition by many bacteria in your guts. And I think with the other approach, which is maybe, can have a few more advantages of prebiotics, or maybe in the ideal world, the combination of pre and probiotics, which is symbiotics. But prebiotics are the fertilizers, so they are feeding these bacteria that are already there. So if you have a kind of a healthy microbiome, please maintain that, and you can really do great things like feeding these good friends with prebiotic ingredients as well.
Yeah.
And of course, in the end, and I remain a scientist, and I like scientific studies and research. So it also comes with the amount of science behind, and I think the prebiotic as well as the probiotic fields have really great science behind with the probiotic. Of course, there are many strains, so it depends a little bit on which strain was investigated, what dosage, what population. Yeah. To some extent, that is also true for prebiotic ingredients. So you need to look at it, but I think nowadays, even with meta-analyses and systematic reviews, it's a well-established category, and giving these benefits basically
What?
to overall health and well-being.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been looking at recently, I'm going to be writing more about it in my magazine, is the different types of good gut bugs and the kind of the camps they fall into, the bifidobacteria and the lactobacillus bacteria, and how the bifido are quite greedy and quite aggressive, and they're quite strong, and they tend to munch up a lot of all the good stuff that we eat, maybe to the detriment of the other smaller little gut bugs that are really, really important but are kind of left, by the roadside, because these other warrior bugs have kind of eaten all the good stuff. So, having a prebiotic, I guess, ensures that all our gut bugs have got a chance of being fed something good so they can thrive. Because you don't just want one variety, you don't just want your bifido or your lactobacillus, you want this huge array, don't you?
That's right, and I think that's the element of the diversity of the gut microbiome, because that's also a very important element. And I think now we are at a time that we are going to understand a little bit more about the diversity and how healthy the diversity is. It's all based also in association studies and bigger clinical trials. But I think you are perfectly right that it's not, in the end, not a purpose to let bloom one bug or one species, but, it's kind of, overseeing. And I think that variety and diversity is especially a very important element. And I think in that way, prebiotics may have a little bit of a slight advantage over probiotics even. Yeah,
interesting. Gosh, the focus could then be more on prebiotic than probiotics, because we're all very familiar with probiotics. In fact, when I first saw the term prebiotics, I thought it was a spelling mistake. I hadn't even heard the word prebiotic, and then, investigating it further. Do you think that the role of prebiotics then is going to become more important?
Yeah, that's for sure. We see and we know there is really the area and the whole category is increasing and picking up heavily. I think it's an interesting point, Liz, that you mentioned, because I think what we still need to do is a lot of education, making people more aware of it. Just if I go back to my training at university, when I was at university in biomedical sciences, for the 5 years, I think I only got a few hours really on nutrition.
Yeah.
So
doesn't surprise me.
And also in our research, we are working and collaborating with university groups, with medical faculties, with healthcare professionals and investigators. And I always start a conversation, not excusing, but okay, what do you know about the gut health? Have you been familiar? Have you been reading about pre and probiotics? And then I think nicely a conversation starts.
Yeah.
Most people nowadays are aware, but I think we still need to do a lot of, or put efforts into education and making people aware of the different options they might have.
Yeah, definitely. And the great thing about all of this is that, we have the ability, I think, to change our gut microbiome. It can change very quickly, within a few days even, if you start to include different foods. What are the kinds of foods in terms of prebiotics that we should be looking to eat?
Yeah, I think there are multiple options. So in the prebiotic category, there are, the usual stuff like inulin, like fructooligosaccharides and galactooligosaccharides. There are a few new components that are being discussed at different societies, also in scientific societies, whether or not they should be included in the list of prebiotics. And again, going back to that point of making people more aware or educate them a little bit, even prebiotics. Well, we know prebiotics are dietary fibers, but again, not all fibers are prebiotics. So there is also the example of insoluble fibers are more full bulking agents, like you see for constipated patients. But then more the soluble ones, I think the FOS and the GOS, so the fructooligosaccharides and the galactooligosaccharides, are the prebiotic fibers that have a huge scientific background, evidence behind it. So
now, are they soluble fibres or insoluble?
Soluble.
They're soluble. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because we hear a lot about insoluble fibre, and we're always being told to eat more fibre and have more fibrous fruits and veggies and all of that, which, you know, is healthy for lots of reasons for the most part. But this soluble fibre is really interesting, isn't it? So where are these galacto-oligosaccharides and the I can't say it, GOS and the FOS, basically. where are they coming from?
Well, the majority and the FOS is, well, you can find a lot of sources in fruits, in vegetables. GOS is more, you know, lactose-based. Basically, the available GOS, also the GOS like you have in infant formulas. Also, the Bimuno GOS is an example, are made, so are manufactured, but very standard. Yeah. And I think these are also what, again, with the comparison with probiotics, very stable and versatile products. So, and I think that is also brings an advantage that you can, you know, store them for some time. Which is not always the case with probiotics. Also, we have done studies at Pasado in the past with travelers' diarrhea, for example. So travelers taking their prebiotics is sometimes much more easier to other countries, or, you know, flying everywhere, or maybe just even, you know, sitting in the car for a couple of hours than your probiotics. So there are also these practical advantages and disadvantages, but, you know, just acknowledging that, you know, every product or every category can have its pluses and minuses, of course.
Yeah. So interesting that you mentioned Bimuno, because I've actually got some here. So this is actually what I've been taking. So I take this little sachet. So this is a GOS, is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
So a galacto-oligosaccharide. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Gold star. Nervous about saying these chemical words when I'm talking to an expert. And literally, I mean, this is what I do. Tell me if I'm doing the right thing. I just put that, it's just like a little powder. I've got it in my cup of coffee. And just have that every day. I mean, is that the right thing to do? Should I be having it daily?
Well, I can say I do exactly the same. So every morning, and it can be in cold, it can be in a hot drink. You can sprinkle it over breakfast. And that's exactly what it is. It's a very versatile and stable product, so it dissolves easily, and have it once a day.
And what's it going to do? How is it going to work?
Well, basically, like actually every prebiotic, so it is not digested by our body. So it passes the upper GI tract, it passes the stomach, it basically passes the small intestine, but once it's in the colon, the large intestine, it's going to be the substrate for these bacteria. And the gut bacteria, and especially the bifidobacteria, are going to utilize this. They are going to flourish, they are going to grow, and they are then also producing some of these elements like metabolites. There is a group of metabolites produced by lactobacilli, by bifidobacteria, called short-chain fatty acids. Yeah. And these short fatty acids, as an end product of that fermentation of your GOS, does it taste right?
Yeah, it tastes great. It's very slightly sweet, but yeah, no, it tastes great. Love it. Can't really taste it, to be honest. It's slightly sweet.
Good. Yeah. So these galacto-oligosaccharides are eaten by the bacteria. The bacteria produce these elements. And the short-chain fatty acids is an interesting category of molecules, because these molecules can have these signaling features towards other cells like immune cells. But even there is new research showing that short-chain fatty acids can also influence the nervous system, so the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system. So it's believed that these signaling molecules can have that link to other organ systems.
So I've been taking a Bimuno kind of off and on, And it's kind of one of those things that for me, and tell me whether this is right or wrong, I don't see an immediate difference. So there may be stuff going on in my gut. I mean, I feel really well, and it's hard to pinpoint, isn't it, exactly, when you're you suddenly start to perhaps eat a bit better or sleep a bit better, which of those things. So is that kind of goodness just going on? I mean, we shouldn't expect a dramatic result if we suddenly start to take, a GOS or whatever kind of prebiotic. Is that something that we're just going to have to trust our gut, literally, that it's going to be doing good rather than expect a dramatic change?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because it could be that you have already a very good and healthy microbiome. So I would say keep taking it, because maintaining of that good and healthy status of your microbiome, and that could include, the good levels of bifidobacteria already or other beneficial bacteria. What we have seen in more clinical research is, if there are some gut health problems or issues in patients, it can be, one example is irritable bowel syndrome,
right,
which is sometimes difficult. It can be a cluster of symptoms. It can be, sometimes typically with predominant diarrhea or predominant constipation. But even if you have a more sensitive stomach, I would say, there we have seen that it can have quite an immediate effect. So let's say within the window of 3 to 7 days, you see really an improvement of these symptoms.
If you've got an upset gut, then that's going to help to regulate it.
Exactly. So it could be, and I believe, you are in a very healthy situation at the moment, and everything is in balance.
Yeah, totally. But I want to keep it healthy. And I did a nutrigenomic test not that long ago, which was really interesting, looking at what was going on in my DNA, and also it looked at a snapshot of the way my gut was working. And it showed that actually I needed a bit more bifidobacteria. So I'm very strong on the lactobacillus, which I'm kind of not surprised, because I have a lot of kefir and yogurt, and I'm getting a lot of my lactobugs, if you like, from there. But the bifido ones, and in fact the doctor I was talking to, it's about an article I'm actually researching for Earle Wellbeing, said to me, do you eat much kimchi and sauerkraut and those foods that are high in bifidobacteria? And I said, well, to be honest, I don't. I mean, I prefer my kefir, and I kind of think I'm doing that instead. And that she said, no, actually you need to do the whole thing, because the bifido bugs are really good. And I kind of had to remember, I said, okay, I need a spoonful of sauerkraut or something, with this. So actually looking at the research, particularly with the Bimuno, the fact that it is going to support the bifido bugs especially, I think, for me, is making me think, right, okay, that's a kind of a wake up for me, actually, to say absolutely, every day.
No. And that's that's all the reason to make sure you are doing good for your gut and your gut bacteria. That's absolutely.
And is it something that we should be giving our children? Can we do it at any age? Elderly parents or younger children?
Yeah, basically we push the product for above 4 years, and that's not because it can do harm, but sometimes we don't have the full overview of clinical studies. We haven't done all the sub-populations, so also getting some new clinical data, of course, that may help.
But it's interesting what you were saying about infant formula, that they put GOS into infant formula, is that right?
Yeah, and they do that already for many, many years. Because
I know that.
And that basically stems from the good thing of oligosaccharides, because there is a lot known nowadays about human milk oligosaccharides. I'm not sure if you have heard about it, but there is a huge lot of research science going on in this area. And going back to Mother Nature, I mean, for these substances, these oligosaccharides in mother milk are there for a certain reason, I would say. And that's exactly, links to the kind of, I would always say, the window of opportunity with infants who are still vulnerable. They are still, in developing their immune system. They are in a developing stage of the gut microbiome. That's exactly where these oligosaccharides have such a relevant and important effect. Now we are adults, so is there then still a reason to believe that it is helpful? Yes, that's what we have shown, and I think Bimuno GOS is the excellent example, because when I looked also in doing my pediatric research, now also being at Clasado, Bimuno GOS is one of the ingredients with the most evidence behind it. So I was really impressed when I looked at all studies behind it. So at the moment we have more than 90 publications behind such a single ingredient.
Wow.
More than 20 studies.
Wow.
And I think now also knowing the connections between the gut microbiome and the brain, or the skin, or the lungs, or the liver, I think there is much more to come. And that's also what we basically do. That's also my role at Clasado, to do this, to explore the whole area of research and what we can further build.
So fascinating. And what about, we're hearing a lot about the immune system, obviously, at the moment. What about things like, the autoimmune issues? We're hearing that so many of those stem from disturbances in the gut and just too much inflammation there.
Yeah, I think, Liz, that's exactly the point. So we know the immune system is not an easy system to understand. It's complex. There are so many of these immune markers and cells, and interacting and cross-talking with each other and with other body organ systems. So what we also have seen with in the clinical studies with Bimuno, with the immune system, there were two levels, so two elements. One is the kind of first line or the first barrier, so the innate immune system. So it's a kind of unspecified reaction. We have also seen at another level more regulatory responses. So these immune cells can regulate each other. They can have different responses with also these signaling molecules. And what we have seen after an intervention with Bimuno GOS is that anti-inflammatory markers were up. So it's kind of a protection against inflammation.
Right.
And pro-inflammatories were lower. And I think inflammation is naturally a reaction of this immune system. And I think that's also with the pandemic what you see. Inflammation is good, but you should to some extent control it. Otherwise, it overrules your body.
Yeah.
And now you were talking about autoimmune. It's basically the same with allergy. It needs that tight and delicate balance between preventing the body from pathogens, from pathogen invasion, but also preventing it not overreacting to certain signals like food allergens.
Right.
I mean, there is no reason for an immune system to overreact, but apparently it does.
It does,
So
for sure. I mean, a lot of people, absolutely, have issues. Tell me, is there a connection with histamine? Could you take Bimuno if you have a histamine intolerance? Is it going to either help or not help, or be neutral?
To be honest, we don't have a specific data behind that. So far, we don't see any contracaution or precaution or contraindication for that.
Because I'm thinking my eldest daughter has quite a serious autoimmune issue, and she's on a very low histamine diet. And one of the things that we're trying to do is reduce the inflammation in her gut and to build up the good gut bugs. So I was just wondering whether this would be helpful for her, or whether it it might trigger something else.
Yeah, there are no indications that it will trigger something else. So I'm still on the side that it's helpful. If you have any questions or specific things to talk to your doctor or to your GP and see what she or he advises.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm definitely. I mean, I know so many people with so many different issues, and it's just so encouraging to know that there's something that we can do practically that is healthy and helpful, and it's empowering, isn't it? Because it's putting the control back into our own bodies, because we have we live in the most amazing body, don't we? And we've got all these amazing things and processes going on inside us, and sometimes we just need to take a step back and think, how can we best support these, and not just wait until we get sick and then have to try and treat us with some sort of artificial medicine. But I'm really interested, and I'm sure you are too, in watching the rise of functional medicine and doctors talking about functional medicine now.
True. No, you are so right, and I think going back when I was at university, it was a lot about disease and mechanisms and pharmacological approaches, which is, for all good reasons.
Yeah, we need it. It's not either or, it's both, isn't it?
Sure. But I think before that, living in a healthy environment, keeping control of your body, it's so essential to realize what you can do with nutrition on a daily basis. And most of the things are, just simple things like you showed with the example, just pouring your Bimuno in your cup of tea or coffee.
Yeah, super easy. And actually, before our chat last night, I took a little look around the Bimuno website just to sort of familiarise myself with it. And you've got some amazing articles and research there. I don't know how much of that has come from you personally, but it's really fascinating. I highly recommend it. If you've got some time this weekend, go and take a read on it, because I learnt a lot and I thought I knew a little bit. But it's and presumably you keep that updated, do you, with new stuff?
True, Liz, and that's also why we like to make it a bit digestible.
Very good.
Speaking in terms, no, because what I mentioned is the more than 90 publications, but these are really scientific publications.
Yeah.
If you feel free, have a look and try to read it. That's not a problem. And as I said, we have more than 20 clinical studies already behind such a product. But what we and that's also what my team is doing at the moment, to keep it digestible in terms of little blogs or just
Love
little
it.
items on or a research spotlight, something to highlight from an article and explain a little bit more about, for example, the gut immune system or the gut-brain axis, etc., etc.
Excellent. Well, it's definitely on my reading list. Lucian, it's great to chat to you. I have to say, I hope your wife is not reading some of the comments on Instagram, because I think you've got a bit of a fan club over here. If ever you get over to the UK, you might have a welcoming committee. It's lovely to chat to you. Thank you for sharing so much of your brain power and your knowledge. We're so grateful.
Yeah.
And stay warm. Enjoy the skating.
Yes, we all do. Have a good weekend.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, what a charming guy. Yeah, you missed a bit of a treat there. I'm sorry on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm also sorry because my gaffer tape is now slipping. I'm sort of trying to sink down so that you can see me a bit better. I tell you what I'm going to do. I don't think I can get the gaffer tape to work, so I'm going to have to come down here so that you can see me more easily on Facebook, and then I can adjust. Yeah, I love the Dutch accent. Oh, what a nice man, and so knowledgeable. And I just think it's so interesting to hear about these things that we can do for ourselves. I think what we don't want to do is to, always be beholden onto, outside sources to make us well, when there's just so much that we can do, hopefully. And yes, I saw lots of chat also on Instagram. You were very distracting. I was not flirting, Tracy. Was I flirting? I was not flirting. Honestly, he's a happily married man in Holland. But yes, lovely. Always like a nice conversation with somebody knowledgeable. I've totally lost my train of thought now. Yeah, two lovely men this week. Yeah, we had Rupert, didn't we, from Delilah Cosmetics. I hope everybody has snapped up. I think their mascara in particular has just been selling out. Sorry, just to go completely off topic for a moment. I've been using it and I love it. As those of you who know from my Instagram earlier, I've been faithful to Clinique mascara for decades. And I think I have a new friend in my makeup bag. And that code, by the way, the Liz Loves code on Delilah, that works on every single priced item. Okay, so if you just want the mascara or you just want the eyeshadow palette that I used, or the, whatever, that lovely luminous face thing, which I forget the name of, which I've got on at the moment just to give me a little bit of a glow. Yeah, you get your 20% off with Liz Loves. So it's just the sets where they combine them because they're already discounted, so they don't do it on that. But if you want the single products, absolutely. And, of course, we do have a Liz Loves on Bimuno. Yes. So we're going to have to start a poll, aren't we? That Rupert's getting lots of hearts, and so is Lucian. I'm going to have to pop a little poll up. Maybe I'll do it as a fun thing on my Instagram stories. Let's just see whether it's the Brits versus the Dutch, maybe. Anyway, we do have, sorry, back on subject here, we do have a discount that Bimuno have given us all, and that's Liz Loves, of course, capitals, and that's 15% off Bimuno, and it also works on their triple packs. So they do discount a triple pack. So I imagine, I've only bought mine singly actually, but I'm going to go back and get the triple pack. I imagine it's 3 of those boxes. And you then, so that's a good deal, and then you get your 15% on top. So for me, that is obviously going to be the best way to get it. And that apparently, according to my notes here from my team, that saves nearly 30% off. And they're going to hold that for us until the 30th of June. Isn't that brilliant? Great. I'm trying not to read I'm being very distracted by this cheeky lot here on Instagram. So I'm not paying attention, okay? La la la, fingers in the ears, not listening. Right, just to say, earrings. Got some questions here about earrings. Yes, I am wearing, you can see it now because I pulled my hair back, my little hearts. So these are the little mangrove hearts. We have kept, my jewellery team have kept the discount going on this, by the way. So we did it originally, I think they had it for Valentine's Day, which is obviously on Sunday. And because they're little heart-shaped, they put 30% off if you use the code MANGROVE, 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 which is the name of the little leaf that they're shaped after, the little heart-shaped leaf. So that gives you 30% off on Liz Old Jewellery, and they've kept that going, okay? And they do come in a little, pretty little presentation box with a little card and everything. So yeah, that is about it. Cell return, it runs out on Monday. I'm going to have to get up in a minute because my knees are about to give out. Lorraine is asking on Instagram, would the cell return mask work on deep wrinkles? Well, it's certainly transforming my skin. I mean, I've been using it now for, oh gosh, when did Lily start? Probably the end of the autumn, maybe. Maybe I've had mine for 3 or 4 months, something like that. Would not give it up. Absolutely. I would fight you for it. I think it's really, really good. Rochelle on Instagram, are disorders like manic depression, schizophrenia affected by the gut? Yes, there's a definite connection. You know, there's lots of research papers on that. Do you know, I always say if you want to get some good evidence-based information, well, obviously head to Earle Wellbeing to start with, but if you want to do a really deep dive, go to PubMed. So PubMed online, they have peer-reviewed academic journals. So it's kind of like the gold standard. You know, if something's on PubMed, you know that it's stood academic scrutiny from a wide variety of sources. And it was interesting, actually, I looked at the lactoferrin studies. We were talking about Leapfrog last week, which is another supplement that I absolutely love. And I don't take it all the time. I take that sort of specifically if I'm feeling a bit sniffly or a bit under the weather. But that has nearly 9,000 studies on PubMed about lactoferrin. So really interesting. So yeah, look up GOS, G-O-S, the galacto-oligosaccharides, I think, on PubMed. So there we go. Couple of other questions. Will prebiotics fail to be effective if you have the leaky gut? No, it would be helpful. It would be helpful with that. My daughter, this is from Pam on Instagram, has been on IV antibiotics in hospital. Oh my goodness. What would be the best foods and drinks to offset this, please? Well, she will definitely need some good probiotics. So, you know, eat really well. So things like kefir would be really good, a wide variety of leafy greens and veggies and, you know, all those healthy stuff, some sauerkraut, some kimchi, get all that going on. Probably get the Bimuno to keep feeding that. And you can also get, I think it's Optibac, which is another probiotic brand that I really like. They do one specifically for antibiotics. So you can check in your chemist, you know, ask the pharmacist for it. I think it's on the shelf, or maybe it's behind the counter with the pharmacist. But there's one specifically, and you can have it during antibiotics. Some people think that you can't have a probiotic and an antibiotic because they think the probiotic is going to wipe out the effectiveness of the antibiotic, but that's not the case. You can have probiotics and antibiotics at the same time, and in fact the Optibac one actually is designed specifically to be taken alongside an antibiotic. So I really hope that helps, and it's really important. What a lucky girl to have you as a mum who can pass that on to her, because that's really helpful. Right, it is Friday, so just to say, I hope that everybody is signed up to the newsletter. I am going to have to sit up now, I'm sorry. Facebook. You're just going to have to see the top of my head. Maybe I can lean forward instead. So I hope that everybody has signed up to the Earle Wellbeing newsletter. Amy has written that, and that is coming up this afternoon. She presses the go button at 4 o'clock. So just go to lizelwellbeing.com and sign up. It's a really great free resource. It's got some really good stuff in it this week, as always. We don't spam you. We don't share your data or sell, do anything nasty like that. It's purely a resource, free resource for my community here. And there's a link in that to today's Friday 5 podcast. So the Friday 5 podcast this week is really such a good listen. I'm joined by an inspiring young woman. She's only 19, Ellie Waters, and she has written a great guide to post-cancer treatment and hormone health. And I felt very privileged actually to be able to speak to her. Are the tulips behind me real? Yes, they are. Tulips from Amsterdam. Do you see the connection? I'd like to say that was carefully planned, but it's just one of those happy synchronicity things. Anyway, I will leave you with that. Hope you enjoy the newsletter. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Also this week I was busy on YouTube. I was starting a new series on information about menopause, and my first film on that is now up on YouTube. So I'd love it if you go and take a look. Let me know what you think. You can leave a comment on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the Earle Wellbeing YouTube channel, because then you'll get a little notification when the next one comes in. I'm planning to do a whole series of these, so I hope you find them helpful and lovely to see you. Thank you. Thank you for all your love. I've got loads of tulips now, tulip emojis all over my Instagram. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good vibes. Happy vibes, everybody. Sending everybody lots of love. And I'm very sorry I've slipped down from the screen on Facebook. I will get it fixed for Monday. Lots of love. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.